In this video, we're going to talk about how to find a remote job in 2025. Believe it or not, to find a remote job in 2025 is to not apply to remote jobs. Do not apply to a remote job if you want to get a remote job in 2025. I know it's very contradictory. How can you not apply to a remote job if you need a job, if you need a remote job in 2025? So let me expand on that. If you want a remote job and you go apply for a remote job, guess what? There's millions of people just like you looking for remote jobs. And guess what they're not looking for? People who are only looking for remote jobs, they're not looking at on-site job. And they're not looking at, more likely not looking at hybrid jobs. So guess what? If you go and look for those remote jobs only, then you're leaving those hybrid and on-site jobs less competitive. We already know that this job market is very competitive, and now being able, like, just even to get an interview those days is very difficult. So to reduce the pool of the competition, the level of competition, you definitely don't want to look for a remote job. If you want to work remote, go look for a hybrid job and on-site. Let's first expand on hybrid job. So with hybrid job, yes, it's not remote, I understand it. So you're more likely gonna have a flexibility to go into the office sometimes, and other times being able to work from home. So whether it's 2 or 3 days, depending on the company that you work for, there's definitely gonna be some flexibility there. But you want to go for those because the people who really don't want to be um, uh, the people who are only looking for remote jobs, they're definitely not gonna go apply for hybrid. That gives you more chance. Once you get started, really go and do your job well, stay compliant, even for 1 or 2 years, do your job very well, show that you can comply, and then from there, you might be able to negotiate to continue remote as long as you've done your job very well and you stay consistent with your productivity. You show that you a productive member of a team. You show that the team can trust you and you always get your job done. Then you definitely gonna have a very good chance to have that approved by your manager. But guess what? If you hadn't applied for that job, you will never have the opportunity to even have that discussion because you were only so focused on the 100% remote jobs. So yeah, that's my first advice there. Um, my second approach there, for people who are only looking for remote jobs, go and apply for on-site jobs. I know this is not what you're looking for, but trust me, follow me here. So yes, with on-site jobs, once you can prove yourself, no, it may take a while. This is not going to be a process that's going to be a couple months or whatever. You're probably talking 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4 years. But once you can prove yourself that you can work independently and then you're so productive, guess what? A remote offer, a remote job opportunity is going to be on the table because you can just tell your manager, hey, I've been here for 3 to 5 years, my productivity is good, I really need to go relocate with my family into a different state, and in order for me to continue to work for this company, I really need the flexibility to be able to work from home. I'll come to the office once in a while, a couple times a year for a very important meeting on my own expense or company expense, depending on what you want. But I really need that flexibility because I need to be closer to my family, or I need to, whatever reason that you have, But then again, they're gonna be more likely open to it as long as you've performed so well. And this is why I say, if you need a remote job in 2025, do not apply for a remote job. Okay, let's talk about a different aspect there. Now we're going to talk about where to look when it comes to jobs, right? Because now we already know that we're not going to look at remote jobs. But even if you're still looking for only remote jobs, there are places that you can look at. So don't really go into like very large companies. Because very large companies, once a decision has been taken from the top, it goes down very quick, and it's just very large companies. The level of negotiations is very difficult because even if your manager wants to comply or wants to help you, his boss's boss will not even entertain that. So that means your request will not even make it to that level, right? So that means you will have less chance of negotiating such a thing. So that's why you really want to look into regional size companies. Like regional companies, they're usually in a specific region and they have a lot of locations within a specific regions, usually within 3 to 4 states. They often hire remotely, as long as you are in within one of those states or the time zone. But then even if they're not hiring remotely, you can apply the same strategy, go on site. And because remember they are in more than one state. Regional, usually they are in 3 to 4, 5 states. Then that means there's flexibility around to move in one of those states. If you don't want to be where you are at the moment, that gives you more flexibility to negotiate a remote position, right? Or to change your um on-site job to remote or hybrid. And then another thing is to target the medium-sized company. Like I said, you don't want companies where it's very management chain is so high that your request will never even get to the top. So then you don't really want those companies. You want to get into the medium-sized companies. Plus, one thing I will also advise is to avoid government jobs. As you know, the government has now been open to remote jobs. They try to cancel all the remote jobs. The president said you can't have remote jobs anymore. So then you definitely, if you want to work remote, you don't want to go there. And if even there, even though you go on site there you definitively know that this is probably not going to turn into a remote job, because they already said no more remote job with the government. So yeah, don't look for any government jobs. And also you have to be realistic, when it comes to salary. If you really want a job, a remote job, if you're really looking for those remote jobs, your salary expectation has to be really lower compared to somebody who's willing to go on site. That's the reality. But let's say you take an on site job and you get a fair compensation. If you decide to go remote, you can maybe negotiate that with your boss. Hey, if you send me remote, instead of giving me 3-4% every year, give me half of that. I can save a company money. Or if you feel like your salary is in a good stage, you can tell your boss, hey, instead of giving me a pay increase every year, give it to me every other year, or every 3 years, or every 5 years. I'm saving the company money, and I'm gonna give you even more productivity, because I'm gonna keep getting better with years of experience. Or so yeah, those are ways that you can use to be really able to to you have to have a level, right? So you're using compensation as a level to really help them understand, hey, I'm gonna be even a better performer. You're not gonna pay me more, you're gonna pay me the same. You're only gonna increase my salary every 3 to 5 years, which a lot of people will do just because they want the flexibility of being at home. So I probably do that. Why not? I mean, and another advice that I want to really give is, the best places to apply when it comes to those kind of opportunities. Really, I recommend, hospitals, like regional and medium-sized hospitals or clinics, like positions in billing, tech support, scheduling, HR, engineering and stuff like that. And also non-profit, right? Non-profit, they often hire for fully remote teams, because they have a on the law tight budget. So then you have a higher chance to really be given that opportunity, even though it's hybrid or on site. But then eventually, if there's budget constraint, they may be more open to it later. So those are really my tips if you really want to look for remote jobs in 2025. Don't look for a remote job, look for on site. Hybrid, go on site, and then from there you negotiate once you can prove yourself. So this is really how I would recommend to go about it in 2025, because it's nearly impossible to get a remote job now. Very, very difficult. Very, very difficult. Good luck even if you can have an interview, because there's a lot of layoff happening all over, and being able to go where no one wants to go, but then prove yourself, you know, so that you can have that remote opportunity is definitively going to give you a huge advantage compared to the people who are only looking for remote jobs.